good evening, viewers, and welcome to yet another episode of Family Matters. This evening, we will be discussing the impact of separation on the family with a focus on migration and finance. This program comes to you under ChildLink's Recovery Safeguarding Reintegration Initiative and is funded by the delegation of the European Union to Guyana. I'm your hostess, Shaquita Thomas. Tonight, I have in studio with me who are eager to share their expertise and their experiences with us on the said topic. Two phenomenal young people who would have been making a lot of impact in our Guyanese society, positive impacts those are. And without further ado, I'll have them introduce themselves.
Good, eve- Good evening. My name is Stanison Cameron. I'm a mother of two wonderful kids, both are girls, and I presently serve as a secretary on the NGO, which the name is Young Pioneers. I'm also the country coordinator for Region 4. That's one of our districts that we work in.
Okay.
Yes.
Good evening, viewers. My name is Calvin Reed. I'm an assistant pastor of the Newtown Assembly of God Church, and I wear many hats, but I've been working with youth for the past 5 years or so, and yes, that's it.
That's it. So let me say thank you guys so much for sparing, giving us some of your time. I know you both have very busy schedules to come and share your experiences and expertise. Like I mentioned earlier, we will be discussing the impact of separation on the family with a focus on migration and finance. A lot of times parents have to leave the country in order to create a better life for children, which is a form of separation because when it's all said and done, they're leaving their homes, they're leaving their children, and they're going in some other part of the world because they need to provide. It's necessary that the basic needs of the children are provided. And this doesn't say, however, that the lives of the children and the livelihoods aren't affected. So can you tell me, how can parents migrating to work or to provide a better life for children affect them, or migrating in general affect them?
Okay, first of all, I'll say both parents and children are affected
Mm-hmm.
because some parents are affected emotionally as where they think they have to bear the burden and the strains of raising their kids alone. Never mind you have that partner not being there, it still feels like if you're in this shell all by yourself. For the kids, sometimes they feel like, mommy or daddy, whichever parent is not there, doesn't have that much time for me. They do not care about my upbringing. Sometimes they need certain questions that what can I say, that father would be able to answer more capable than a mother. But my father's not there, so they feel pressured and they can become vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, all type of abuse can even arise from them. So both parents are affected. Both parties, I must say, are affected.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's right.
Yes, well, I think migrating or separation between parents and children, they're never easy, and it would have, to my mind, some negative effects, especially on the children, because here is it that you're left, you growing up all the time with your mother and your father and whatnot, and for some reason, well, we know in the quest for finances or better living, are parents go away and leave the children. I think a lot of things would go through a child's mind based on the age. One would feel that, well, the parents, for some reason, they don't like them, they're stressed. This child probably think that I'm a burden to my parents, that's why they went away. Even though at times we know once your parents or your relatives go away, then you would get some barrels and so forth. But I think the emotional trauma or the emotional hurt can never be compensated for.
Yes, indeed, because it's important that parents are there. I mean, how much can someone left in charge? I mean, I know sometimes mothers are the ones left in charge of the home while the father is away working. And I just so happen to know that your husband would be away working. So can you say directly, like looking at your children, how were they affected? Maybe some behavioral changes, some different attitudes. Can you?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do face those challenges for my big daughter. Not her father not being there, they do not have that connectivity where it comes to communicating. Like sometimes she would hold back on telling him things or hold back on saying things, or she would come mostly to me So the communication barrier is a big issue. For my little daughter, she does not fully understand like the aspect of it, but it do affect her some way because sometimes she would, want that daddy kind of love and attention and he's not there. So I have to play a double role. So both, I can say with age, both of the age ranges are affected, which in my big daughter, she's 13, and my small daughter, she's 5. So both of them do, have something along the way that affect them in that region where the separation is of the parent.
Okay, I understand that because a lot of times, there are things that you might want to tell daddy, but mommy is there, and you can't get daddy's insight face to face,
No.
but more so you might more be able to get it over the phone. And do you think, Pastor Reed, that children can act out as a result of a parent not being present?
Yes, I believe they can act out, and that would be a form of rebellion. That would might be a form of their displeasure of a parent not being there. I'm a Christian, so I believe in the Bible, and the Bible speaks in Genesis 2:24. Therefore, a man should leave his mother and father and cleave to his own wife. So, I think God's plan for this, the whole family, is that a husband and a wife, or a male and a female, should come together in marriage, and then raise a family. What we're seeing in the society, they have many single parents, a lot of females raising their children alone, a lot of males. So many times the children, they're caught up between this, and they're saying, well, it's my fault. That someone is not there, whether the father or the mother is not there. Maybe I'm the cause. If I wasn't born, then probably, and a lot of negative, it has a negative impact on their behavior. And we see, so many ill things. They're getting into gangs and so forth because at times, many of them, they're not accepted by the parent because, for instance, you have a single parent mom with 4 children, and she's forced to go out and work and so forth. The emotional connection and this whole giving us love and so forth, they're not there. So you find the children, they go outside, and we know when they go outside, it's either gangs or some illicit activity, and we see they make a mess of their lives.
Yes, yes, I understand that. And I've seen cases, as a matter of fact, where children act out just so they can get the presence of that parent.
Intention.
Like, they have an intention, like, if I should do this, I think mommy is going to fly home or daddy is going to come home.
Yes.
So I'm going to do this. So even if daddy or mommy is here for a short period to discipline me, it's better have them present for that moment, than not have them around at all. And it can be very challenging for children, having to cope and understand, well, daddy have to leave, mommy have to leave, because the ideal family, the thing is, the ideal family is having my mother present, my father present, my brothers and sisters. I can share a personal experience. My father, who worked in the interior, he would be away. It might not be for 6 months at a time, it might be for 2 to 3 weeks. But I can remember valuing his presence so much that when he comes, if he comes on 2 o'clock in the morning, I have a conversation planned out to have with him. So it can be that way for children, and it's important that both parents remain in the child's life. But this is where some economic comes in, where we have opportunity cost.
Yes.
The opportunity of being present and being a part of your children's life at the cost of not being able to provide their basic needs. We can put them at risk of institutionalization again, because you're not being able to provide for them. You can't find food, school clothes, and these things, and maybe the job that you have available aren't paying you the way you deserve to be paid, or paying you enough to maintain or manage a family. And I'm happy that you mentioned parents are affected too, because I want us to go a little more in depth with that. As a parent who is mostly with her children and whose husband is mostly away working, how has that been for you?
Wow. Challenging. Challenging because raising 2 girls isn't easy with the things that you see happening in society today. It can be challenging when it comes to your home because you're trying to raise your children with the moral aspects, like this is the way things are supposed to be done, this is the way you're supposed to handle the situation, this is the way you're supposed to handle yourself. But with society being a screen society now, everything is Facebook or your phone or everything. It is challenging in giving my daughter the ground rules that you have to be dressed in an attire, to be respect yourself, not to follow friends, and not to fall prey to peer pressure. So whereas if our daddy was here, I mean, being a man figure, we tend to, or it is saying that man carry a more authority speaking or tone. So if he was here, she would have understand that context or that text a little bit more instead of mommy being soft because he's not here. So I don't want to be so hard and seem stern on her, but sometimes I do. And that can cause a barrier between communication between us. She may think, oh, you don't want me to do this, or you don't want me to do that, or she would normally say, you don't trust me? I mean, being a 30-year-old, that question do come up. And I would say, yes, I trust you and I love you, but I have to still protect you from what is out there. And with daddy not being here, the job is a little bit difficult for mommy, but we have to work together. So I try to build a strong communication gap between us. I think with the whole separation and migration, everything, you have to have a strong bond of understanding and communication with your kids. Let them know what is happening. Let them know things are expected. It doesn't go right all the time, but you have to be prepared.
Yes. Yes. And a lot of times there's an imbalance. Would you like to say something?
No.
Okay, great one. But a lot of time there's an imbalance created where the parent away might have a different value system, or not completely a completely different value system, but more so a different method of discipline or a different way of doing things compared to the parent at home. So when that parent comes back,
Yes.
it can contradict the two methods of parenting. Pastor Reeds, can you tell us maybe a way in which you would combat something of that nature?
Well, as my colleague here said, communication. We have to, as we would say in Guyanese term, hold one head when it comes to raising
Yes.
our children, because there are some, remember these children, they're smart, and if they know that they could get away with this with daddy, they bypass it, mommy, and
Yes.
go straight to daddy. So we gotta come to a common consensus and say, you know what, this is allowed, this is not allowed, this is accepted, so that around the table, the children would know that, well, there's one standard. And because I would have witnessed persons one time, mommy saying no, and daddy can say, if mommy say no, you go to daddy, and he say, well, daddy say yes, but you came to me first. And then it would even go further than that, and sometimes it cause like a rift or an argument and a problem, a situation between the father and the mother, husband and wife. So the first thing I think we need to do is communicate and set clear standards, clear guidelines as to how we're gonna, be raising the children.
Yeah, and
As Pastor was saying, that do occur because I can say I've had an experience with that. Mommy said yes and daddy
Yeah.
said no, or daddy said yes and
Yes.
mommy said no. And when my daughter came to me, it was very challenging then because you don't want to create a conflict. I mean, conflicts are easy started. So we had to sit down and talk it through. Like, these are the negatives and these are the positive of it. And you always try to let the positive override the negative.
Yeah.
No matter if there is more negative as a parent, you always try to bring the positive from any situation. Always let them know that, this is it, that these things are going to happen. There, the positive barriers, I can say.
And oftentimes we underestimate children. But children can be very manipulative if they want. So children can be
Yes.
very. Children will look and to see, assess and analyze the situation
Yes.
and use it to their advantage. You know what? I'm going to do this. It might not necessarily be because daddy is not here, but I could use as an excuse to get away with it. I'm not saying that all children
Yeah.
act this way. I'm not saying that all children do that, but children do this. And if we're going to address an issue to say, well, parents being away might be a bit dangerous for children, might pose these threats, then we must also say that children can be manipulative and can use a situation to their advantage. So as parents, that is where, real parenting comes in. And you have to sit
Yeah.
and really look to see the behavior changes. How was this child before? How was this child operating, after these things would have happened? And a lot of times, especially in the adolescent stage, children, what we find in our society is that a lot of children, they lose out on the basic elements for their development. Love and affection, having someone there to instill positive morals, a positive esteem, and to push them and boost them. I mean, how much moral development can someone give to a child that's not their parent? I mean, I've seen persons who would have done it, yes, but the best person is always the parents. And a lot of times we say parents leave their children and say, I'm going to leave her with granny or auntie because I trust them and I trust that they will have my child's welfare at heart. But a lot of times that's also necessarily not the case. And although that aunt might be providing the necessary needs, as it relates to affection and love, they're not available. So would you like to give me some insight on that, Pastor? Like you leaving your child with a relative or so, but that child is not given the attention and the affection that he or she needs for their development.
While you were speaking, I was reminded of a quote. I don't know who was the author of it, but I could remember. I think it goes something like, "Love for a child is spelled Time." Right? And we could be giving them all the gifts, all the nice things and so forth. But once we're not spending that time with them and spending time, then it would foster a situation whereby you could instill your morals, you could instill so many things. The thing about parenting, and I think a lot of people, we take it for granted, is that in this child, you're really molding the next generation, right? In this child, you're molding you after you're dead and long gone.
Yes.
Yes.
Your
So
legacy.
yeah, your legacy. So you're actually living on through this child,
Yes.
right? And I believe if more persons could look at life in that way, then I think definitely we would have more time. Yeah, we spend more time with the children. Yes, the physical and the material needs, they're important, but then after all that is said and done, you don't want to have a child where they're given everything,
And
but
they
then
have no values
they're
to
empty.
life.
They're empty. They're a menace to society. They don't have no values. They're just wayward and so forth. So if we could really, as you said, as you asked the question, how important it is, I think it's very important, and for someone to do that from a distance, I think would also be it would be extremely difficult, to really raise a child, give them the morals and everything that you need from, let's say, in the United States of America, and they're here. So,
Yeah, and let me say that children aren't always the only victims. You know what I mean? We're in the cause of working for the rights of children and ensuring that children grow up in a safe Guyanese society, safe communities, safe families, and these things. But parents also suffer, as an effect of having to leave their family and their children behind. And another personal experience can be where my mother would have shared with me when I was a baby, I was younger. She had to leave the country to go for a job in Barbados. And she said to me, I couldn't do it past 3 months. I couldn't be away and not be around at that time I was the only child. Oh, I miss those days. Just kidding. Yeah. So she said I couldn't just be away from you for so long. I mean, I can't remember that.
Yeah.
I was just a baby. But it traumatized her to the point where she always says it. And I'm an adult. My sister is a young adult. My brother is a teenager. But if my mother is to leave the country, oh, the drama. Well, don't let me call it drama. Let me say, the way, it's really hard on her having to leave, according to her 3 babies,
Yes.
to go. So it's equally as hard on parent. But like I mentioned earlier, the opportunity cost.
Yep.
Will I stay and not be able to provide them but give them love? Will they be able to grow on this only, or should I leave and try to provide the best life? And I believe that to some extent parent can also make themselves available, because now we have technology.
Yes.
We have technology, and I'm sure that you.
Yes, my husband and I, we utilize the WhatsApp video system a lot. Yes, we do, because sometimes you need to discuss things with the kids, and that's the only mean. Like, for example, my small daughter had an experience of being bullied at school, and she was a bit traumatized in class, and she cried. So when I went to the parents' meeting, the teacher had mentioned to me, this is happening and stuff. So I came home and I was having a conversation with her. But she understand what I was saying, but I didn't see that much, impact that I would have liked. So I was like, the only body who can really handle this is my husband, but he's not here. So I was frustrated that time of him not being here. But then we look at the cause and the
Yes.
values here. So I was like, how am I going to bridge this moment? So I had to run to the screen, and I called him and I was like, your child is going through so. How do we handle this? And he had a daddy and daughter conversation with her. And I can say from that technology source there's been a great changes in her behavior. She can fully choose if she wants to be within the mean crowd. She has to understand that mean friends are not to be around. They can take advantage of you. So I am thankful for technology.
Yes.
Because if there wasn't no means of communication there, that could have been spearheaded in so many directions.
Yeah.
She would have grown to think that it's okay for somebody to take advantage of me. It's okay to be bullied, or it's okay, that could have even lead, I often say, God forbid, into her becoming a victim of someone of the
Yes.
abuse causes, right? So I'm thankful technology that he could have been there unseen.
Yes.
Not physically, but he could have been there to put his impact into that situation.
A lot of
Yes.
times when parents are absent or when parents aren't in their children's lives, they look to other children and say, well, she got a daddy and she mommy. Look, she daddy and mommy, they come to school to pick her up, and it might make them insecure, where they start thinking that, what Pastor Reed mentioned earlier, I am the cause for this.
Yeah.
Something, maybe if I wasn't here, they wouldn't have had to do this. Or maybe if I didn't have these needs, I would not have had to do this. Sadly, I know of a case of a very young child. She was about 6 years old, where she told her mother, she actually said this, I can stop going to school. I can stop going to school, just so her
Yes.
father, who used to go to the interior, the mother explained it as him having to go
To
to
provide.
provide for the
Yeah.
family. So she now is thinking that maybe if he don't have to provide for me,
Yes.
then he's going to be here.
Yeah.
She's
So
gonna stop going.
gonna
yes,
stop going
she's going to stop going to school. So that is her trying to resolve the issue and trying to bring comfort to herself and have her father
there.
present in her life. So with that conversation there, we would have, we brought out some major points of opportunity cost, parents providing at the cost of their child not being developing to their full potential, psychologically or morally. I'm not saying that children do not conquer this. There are some children who go through it. It's explained to them in adulthood or their later teenage lives, and they understand and they accept, well, it was necessary. But a lot of times we underestimate children, and this is a conversation we were having earlier, Pastor Reed, where we mentioned we underestimate children and say, you know what, he or she is young. They won't understand what's
Yes.
happening. Meanwhile, that child is formulating his or her own perception of the situation, and they're now saying that they're jumping to conclusions now. Mommy is leaving because she have to provide for me, or daddy is leaving because he have to provide for me. And another issue is that apart from migration, let's talk a bit about finance. We don't have much time, but let's talk a bit about finance, where, I'm Pastor, I'd like you to give me some insights on this. A family separating and one parent withholding support, which might cause another parent to have to go looking to provide for the family. So let's talk a bit about that.
That is not that's never easy, and we see it so often in our society, where you have for some reason mother and father separating, and the father saying, okay, well, you wronged me in whatever way, so I'm finished with everything. Now the child or the children, they still have to live, they still have to, they still have needs. So the mom would say, well, okay, I gotta go and I gotta, do what I gotta do. But they're going and do what they have to do now. Leave a gap in the home because daddy is not around.
Yeah.
Mommy, she probably goes out for a 12-hour job, right? So, who is taking care of these children? And we know about many instances in our society. Not so long ago, a couple of years, I could remember there was a instance with I think it was Lodge, where the young lady, she worked as a security guard, and she left the children home and she went to work. And I think one of them tried to light a stove or something. So these in the quest for finance and in the quest to provide, mothers after the fathers would have left, they have to go now and like fend, and the children they left to fend for themselves, because if you have a 12-hour job, maybe you work at night, so you can't pay someone to babysit for you, right? So you're going to put them to bed, and we know that is very dangerous, but it's also a reality, so I think the more we could, and I would reiterate this. I know it's, almost I say, it has become a norm now in this country where persons just, make children, and for some they can't get along, so they leave. But when they're leaving, they left so much,
Gaps
difficulty and so much areas, yes, open, so that children, as we said earlier, would not really reach their full potential.
Yes, so because they're now exposed to abuse, they're
Everything.
Yeah.
neglected. And let me say, mothers leave too. Because I've
Yes.
seen many cases where mothers leave and leave, she mothers realize that this is what I want for my life. She leaves and the
Yes.
father is left to
Fine.
raise the children, and he's the sole provider and the breadwinner. So children are left on their own or with relatives.
I have two friends. They're mature, but one I think had 2 children. The next one had 4 children, and their wives or whatever, they left, and these guys had to literally raise them. So right in our society, so as you rightfully said, it's not one-sided, right? It's on both sides of the coin.
Yeah, so I hope that you guys were listening and you took heed to what was being said, and I really wish this conversation could have gone on longer, because there's so many other things to say, there's so many other points to touch on. But without further ado, let me say thank you so much for coming and sharing your
welcome.
experiences, your
You're welcome.
expertise. I really enjoyed this conversation, and I'm sure our viewers did too. Okay, so until next time, I'm your host, Shaquita Thomas. Remember, tune in next Thursday and join the conversation with us on Family Matters.